Hello, Amplify You family. Michelle Abraham here, your host. I'm super excited today. We have one of our own podcasters on today for the Behind the Mic interview with Adele Anderson. Adele is a dear friend of mine. We've gotten to know each other the last few years on the coast here where we live, pretty close together. And we both have, just really gotten to enjoy each other's company and learn so much from each other. I've learned tons from Adele this year on NLP. She's an NLP master practitioner, so she helps people, certified people, to become NLP practitioners. She's also trained in homeopathy as well, and she's just one of those wonderful people that can really help you rewire your brain. She uses neuroscience and she uses NLP, and she uses all sorts of interesting techniques to really help you figure out, rewire your brain and help you get over maybe things that's been hanging around, in your closets for a while. That's, some sort of trauma or something that's happened to you. She can really help you get through those things. And she's got an awesome podcast called Mind Your Freedom. So make sure you check out Adele's podcast on iTunes and everywhere else you find podcasts. Mind Your Freedom. So welcome, Adele. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be here today.
You are so welcome.
And it's true. We've just become good friends over the past couple years. And Michelle is a master at what she does. I wouldn't recommend anyone else.
Oh,
thank you. Has eased my way into the whole podcast world. And I have to say, as a solopreneur, that, quite often we're in our offices alone and it's a one-woman show, and podcasting has really opened the doors for me talking with people from all over the world who are interested in the same types of things that I am. And I kind of put it back to when I was a restaurateur. You could walk up to any table, anybody that looked cool, and you could go and introduce yourself. And this is kind of like that. It gives you an opportunity to have some fabulous conversations with people that are really on the same vibe as you. So I have to thank Michelle so much for opening that whole world to me.
You're so welcome. I think that's really interesting that you put it in that way, because I feel the same way about podcasting, where it's allowed me to get to know and have an opportunity to invite people onto your show that you don't necessarily have an opportunity to have a conversation with otherwise. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today on our show, because you've really taken this to the next level. And so we always talk about podcasting and how you can get clients from podcasting, and usually from your listeners, and how to, really maximize that, listenership and, help the listeners become clients. But Adele, you've gone and taken this to a whole other level, and you've actually been able to be hired by people that you've had on as guests on your show, but also going out and being guests on other people's shows. A lot of times those hosts have hired you as a practitioner as well. So how cool is that? And I just want to talk about that for a little bit, and just, how have you had a strategy in mind, or it just comes through natural conversation, or how does that even come about?
Well, I think we know that relationships really are key to building and growing our business. When you have a relationship with somebody, that has a level of trust attached to it. So I think that's the first in. And when I have someone that's going to be a guest on my show, I actually do a pre-interview, so we can have a really casual conversation where both of us share a little bit about ourselves. So again, we start that conversation, and by the end of it, because we're so like-minded, we become, there's that level of trust. We began to start that connection and create that relationship. Mm-hmm. And then if I am a guest on someone's show, of course, they learn a lot of what I do. And I'm actually an NLP trainer now. I've actually graduated since Michelle has used my services. So with that, I'm doing some, I have to say, amazing work with changing people's behavior. And my favorite thing to do is to release the emotional pain that people have been burdened with for years. And this is where I have monetized my podcast without even trying, truthfully, just by sharing the work that I do. And then people going like, oh, I think I want to know more. Can I book a session with you? And it's been something that's growing for me. And now today, for the first time, I actually have someone who interviewed me. She became a client, did a full series with me, will work with me again in the future. And she has now referred another person who she interviewed for her podcast, knowing that this person is struggling in a certain way through sharing her story, and now said, I've got someone who can help you. And recommended me. So where you don't know where the ROI is coming from, I found this fascinating, and it's really been an enjoyable process of kind of marketing without even marketing, just by having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, I think we share similar enjoyment in what we're doing with podcasting. And that's why I love it too, is because you're out there. Technically, you are networking and marketing and talking about yourself and your business and your services, but like in such a more natural way where you're building relationships, and it's coming from those, before you press record conversations or after you press record and the recording's done, and then you have a conversation afterwards where you really get to go a little bit deeper into a conversation with people. And especially when you're saying so many amazing things on the podcast about things that you can help people with. And especially for you with the trauma, everyone's got some sort of crap in their background that they want to get rid of. And so it's so great. Thing like, wow, you have this wonderful person now in front of you that I'm interviewing that, oh my gosh, could be really beneficial and really helpful to me. To just, improve my overall life. And it's funny because you've hired me to help you with podcasting. I've hired you to help with our son with his behavior stuff. And and then we co-created a course for a parenting company called, that was about kids and their behavior as well. And it's just really been cool to see your journey into podcasting and how, now you can help so many different kinds of people, not just kids, parents, but other sorts of people as well.
Yeah, but there's more that I want to say. I kind of want to, toot Michelle's horn a little bit because, I've been in business a long time and done, several startups. And so there is a journey with that. And along the way, we hire people to do a certain job for us. And sometimes people overspeak their qualifications, or you set up a working relationship and they have a task to do, and it might not work out. But with Michelle, she's walking the talk. She is so knowledgeable, and she really knows everything about the podcast world, because she was kind of one of those people that was in before the curve. And it's a passion of hers, and you can really see that come through. But she follows through on her word, and she really does get the job done. I can't say enough about that to make the process streamless and understandable and, chunked down to easy, functional work projects. And then to also offer more for those people that would like the done for you deal. You've got that too. So it covers the full spectrum, and you can trust her to do what she says she's going to do for you, because I've been there, and I think she's fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much. We have such big love for each other. I love it. And I'm just, I remember you were a little bit hesitant about podcasting for a little while there because it was going to be maybe not an immediate ROI, right? And so tell us a little bit about that. Like, what made you change your mind, or what have you kind of learned since then?
Yeah, like our relationship's a couple years old now. It was really cool because we met kind of impromptu through Alignable. First and only time I've really used it. But
Alignable, what is that?
I know. I turned out to meet this amazing lady. And, we do have a really amazing female community on the coast. But beyond that, Michelle, I knew what she did, right? And it was one of those things that was kind of on my radar. I was listening to podcasts and enjoying them that way. But all I could think about at that time was, oh my gosh, it's another thing on my plate. It's another thing that I have to do. And so I put it off and I put it off, and she wasn't pushing me. We'd see each other again, and she's like, well, have you thought about it? And I was like, I was just digging in. I was resisting. And then finally I was like, all right, I got to give it a shot. And I find that it's one of the most favorite things that I do in my work.
Yeah.
Is I think when you have a passion for something, you love to share anyway. But the other biggest thing is I love people and I like to talk. So this is easy for me.
Right? And they all connect with people. Yeah. And for us connectors, it's a really great way of like growing your business. You can connect with other people really naturally, organically in a great way, and share your passion and share your stories. And, you know, you don't expect anything in return, but something really cool oftentimes does come out of these conversations. And you never know who's listening on someone else's show. So I think you've done a really great job of being a guest on other people's show, as well as having guests on your show, and also doing your own shows too. So that's kind of giving you a really great kind of overall, ability to position yourself as an expert on your show and be offered those positions as guests on other people's shows, and then networking with people by inviting them onto your show too, which is very cool. Have you found it fairly easy to find other people that are interested and aligned well with your podcast and your topic?
Well, it's a community. Mm-hmm. So as you know, Michelle has put, I don't even know how many hundreds of people through her project. So she's got a list of people that we're connected to on her Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if we're attending, when we learned, we were all on Zoom together. So we got to know those people right away. Mm-hmm. And those people we all got to know each other. So we became networking. Mm-hmm. We were all at the same time starting a new venture, and we used that to the best of our, for everybody's use to get our podcast going. So we had sort of a little built-in safety net, a beautiful little community. And then from there, I got referrals from people that I interviewed, people that got to know a little bit about my work. Janice Porter has the Relationship Rules podcast, and she is similar to Michelle in that she likes to connect people and is good at it. And she sent me some lovely people who I feel like I'm friends with now. Mm-hmm. And there's still room to grow. Like, not everybody is available to be on your podcast, like set them up in our time. It has to be in their time. So even though I've maybe connected with certain people, I know that I won't be interviewing them for another month. But you know what else that's been interesting is that when you meet someone who's like-minded, I'm finding that we're connecting outside of podcasting. I've actually attended somebody's workshop. I've had incredibly rewarding conversations with other people that are in my field. I have developed a circle of empowering people around me through this specific platform of podcasting. I can't tell you all of the growth and development and just the great fun times that I've had since she pulled me kicking and screaming into the podcast world.
I love it. Well, it's kind of interesting to see like how someone's business just starts to blossom when you're around all those kind of like-minded people, and you're really getting into around the similar sort of people. And it's such a collaborative industry, I'd say, because everyone knows that you need guests, I need guests, we have stories, you have stories. It's very much of a sharing platform, which I really enjoy about podcasting. I think that's really a great fit. And so for people who are naturally connectors and would love people like you do and I do, I think it's a really good fit for people, and it makes marketing so much easier when you're enjoying doing it and you're enjoying having these conversations with people. Just so easy. Now I want to switch to our topic a little bit for a moment, because I want to use some of your superpowers that you have, and that's in the NLP world. And so for podcasting hosts, is there something that we can do or anything we should be doing when we're interviewing guests that would be of use for us from an NLP standpoint?
Yeah. So NLP is neuro-linguistics programming, and it is great for a variety of things. But one of the things that it teaches us how to learn, it accelerates learning. It teaches us how we communicate. So, bringing information in through our senses. So everything we see, taste, hear, feel kinesthetically, emotionally, and auditorily. So everything comes in that way. And people use usually 3 out of 5 of those in the language that they use to tell their story. So when you're in the NLP world, you pick up if they're using a lot of visual words or if they're using a lot of auditory words. And what I mean by that is if you were to say, take a look at this, I'd like to get some insight into, if I was to look at this in a different way or peek into, peek around the corner, you can see that I'm using a lot of visual words. So when you want to have a conversation that really makes the other person not only comfortable, but feel in tuned with you, you want to use their types of language. So this is a way for us to build rapport, which means a level of trust, which means that they will open up more because we're speaking their language. And we can do this, it's invaluable in every single profession that's on the planet. But wherever communication is needed, NLP skills really can help you. So that would be one of the cool things. And the other one is to use curiosity, just to be really curious in a deeper sense of the word when you're having a conversation, because people do enjoy talking about themselves for the most part. And when you show interest in what they are doing, they will blossom and open up. So curiosity is key to just allowing yourself to go in and learn a deeper aspect of what this person is offering, what they're shining out into the world. And it's always inspiring. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah, I just love what you've taught me about NLP over the last few years. And originally we were working with my son who had some, behavioral challenges and things, and just learning to listen to what kind of language he was speaking. And, you're like, well, I remember what you said, it's like the secret passageway into someone's unconscious mind, because you can get them to do what you want to do by speaking their language. And I was like, I always think about that whenever he's having any issues. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you get them to listen, is speak their language. And I think that's so cool. What made you get into NLP?
Well, this is sort of my turning point story. So when I was 27, I was in a plane crash. A small plane that I was in, crashed and flipped in a river. And, it happened so quickly. The fellow that was the pilot, he went to do what we call a skip and go off the water. Which meant he was just going to go down and touch his pontoons of the amphibious plane against the surface of water and then soar back up into the sky. But what he didn't realize is he'd left the landing gear down. And so when the plane made impact with the water, we flipped from nose to tail. And it flipped so fast that I saw him go under, and, my subconscious brain at 140,000 miles per hour registered, like, you're in trouble, take a breath of air. And I went to take a breath of air and my mouth filled with water. And then I was upside down in a dark, wet, fast-flowing river, and I had a mouthful of water. And I couldn't get out. I was trapped at that point in my 3-point harness and my life jacket and all the debris that had sort of spilled from the cabin in and around was confusing. And then I began to drown. My limbs began to tingle with the loss of oxygen. And I had this thought that went through my head, I might drown. And just by saying that, a whole series of events started to happen, and my life began to flash in front of my eyes, right from the moment of my birth all the way through all my life, and millions of images. And then it went through my death. And I imagined inside my mind what would happen if I was to drown, and how the local police force would walk through my parents' front yard and go up their, big red brick steps and knock on the door. And I actually, inside my mind, I could see it unfold. I watched my parents' facial expressions change from curiosity why the police force was there, or why these two people were standing there. And then the realization, and then finally that deep knowing that, I was dead. And in this image that was running through my head, my mom collapsed to the floor. She covered her head and she screamed. And she screamed so loud inside my head that it snapped me back into my situation, that I was upside down drowning in a plane that had crashed and overturned in water. And I made a choice right at that moment that I'm getting out of the plane. I'm getting out of it now. And that set into an amazing series of events, even more profound, because all of those images that had been flashing forward began to go in reverse. Back in time, just like an old time ticker tape movie, through millions of images. And then it stopped. And right inside of my, my mind's eye was a movie, one single scene of a movie that I'd watched like decades before. I didn't know the name of the movie. I didn't know the name of the actors or what the movie was about. But the scene that was in front of my eyes gave me all the information I needed to escape a plane that had crashed and overturned in the water. And I followed the script of the commander training young pilots how to do that. And I escaped the plane and saved my life. And from that moment forward, I knew that, even in life's most dire circumstances, out of breath, out of time, we still have the ability to make choice. And it is the most powerful process that we have in each one of our minds, the capacity to change the outcome, but also to access that billions of usable information that has been stored inside our subconscious mind from the moment we became conscious. Everything that we've seen, heard, smelled, tasted, felt emotionally or kinesthetically is filed in that library between our ears. And we really are geniuses. And we have the ability to not only access that information every day, but to use it to empower our dreams and the goals that we have for ourselves.
Oh my gosh, I've heard that story a few times, but every time I hear it, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you got out of that, and like, it just gives me like shivers, like just hearing that story and how powerful our brain is, just incredible. And so, did you start looking into like neuroscience and getting involved in that like soon after that?
Well, the first my first go-to there was homeopathy, which is mind-body medicine. So understanding the language that we use every day to tell our story actually represents sometimes a physical manifestation within our body. Quite often, of course, it illuminates our beliefs, our filters, our negativity, our self-limiting beliefs. So the language that we use really does define what is happening physiologically. We know that every emotion is attached to physiology. So a heart rate, a respiration, a body temperature, metabolic action, all of that is connected indelibly. And so homeopathy was my first real key to understanding that connection between our mind, our mental processes, and our physiology. But it wasn't until I found neurolinguistics programming that I could explain the science behind why I survived. NLP opened that entire realization for me. I had experienced Einstein's theory of relativity, where time is only, subject to the observer. And I don't know how long I was under. It felt timeless. Time did not exist. And now I believe it's because, I moved from my conscious mind that works at 120 miles per hour, and I went into my subconscious brain, which is, not necessarily my fight or flight. The middle brain sits on top of the reptilian, but they do all work together. But it works at 140,000 miles per hour, or, well above 100,000 miles per hour, and downloads a ton of information, like 3 million bytes of information per second. So this whole processing speed and what each of the minds do, even though they're working, they're interconnected and they flow together. Understanding how your mind works is part of us connecting the dots which we then can use that. The NLP can clear the process, but having the deeper understanding of why it works really does allow people to take that information and create life skills from it, so that they can move forward from, from the day that they leave my office. They can use that. They can use that moving forward. And every time life offers a situation that resonates, they can take that, if it's a negative one, and create positive from it, or they can release that negative energy that is then becomes trapped within their body and creates stress, or, immobility.
That's so fascinating. I just love hearing about it and learning about it. And so when you go on to be a guest, so what kind of shows are you the perfect guest for?
Well, I'm any empowerment, anywhere where people are wanting to learn about improving themselves, then that type of, forward thinking, I get so inspired with, because I love evolutionary psychology as well. So we like to see where within the psychology we had the wound, and then learn more about that. So it's connecting the dots. But people that are doing mind science, I have been on several podcasts with psychology. It can really go through that whole realm of neuroscience, psychology, natural well-being, empowerment,
and mind body stuff. Yeah, self-help, mind body. Yeah, you've been on a lot of variety of podcasts, which is great because you make a really great guest for so many of those different shows, which is awesome. Plus, you have an incredible story. So, guys, if you hear that, if you have a show that Adele would be a great guest on, make sure you reach out to her for that. So, Adele, tell us a little bit about your podcast now. What is it all about, and who is a good guest for you?
Yeah, thank you. So, Mind Your Freedom is, all about what creates that ease within your system. So it can be mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, gender, sexual, political. It can run the whole gamut of personal freedoms. And I've had guests that are neurophysicists, who are people that do intuitive work, people that are life coaching, nutritionalists, spiritual leaders, people that are doing celebrations of life, other NLP trainers. I have had, in my opinion, very interesting people on my podcast, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And I am always excited to get it out there. And one of my favorite ones that I just released 2 weeks ago is an old friend of mine, and he is an LGBTQ activist. He goes all over the world and puts his life on the line and has become a resource for that entire community. And I just feel inspired by people that are out there doing the work that creates a sense of freedom for other people in so many ways. We can look at all aspects of our lives and see how we can just open that door and create a safer, more free environment for us to think in, to be, to create wellness within our body, and just to go out there and change the world.
Awesome. I think that's great. I think it's really interesting all the guests you've had on your show. You've got, so you're not just sneak into one kind of, freedom. It's like the whole, like you said, the whole gamut of personal freedom. And, I like the way you've really actually taken the word mind your freedom and the phrase mind your freedom into a whole different level. I was thinking when you first started that it would be mostly around neuroscience and mind and mindset and that kind of stuff, but it's totally different. It's all sorts of, it's really merged into like the whole freedom of living. And I love I love where it's going. I think your show is fantastic. So make sure you check out Adele's show, Mind Your Freedom, on iTunes. And Adele, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for all your kind words. And I just love hearing where your story is going. And we'll catch up with you again as time unfolds in the podcasting world and more fun things come about. And it's just so cool to see the things unfolding for you.
Thank you, Michelle. It's always a fun time to just hang out with you.
Yeah.
Really, thank you for putting me on your podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. So awesome. Again, guys, this is the Behind the Mic interview with Adele Anderson from Mind Your Freedom podcast. Make sure you guys check it out. And feel free to reach out to Adele to bring her on your show. And you can find her. Where can we find you, Adele?
You can find me at lifecoachadele.com. You can find me at Mind Your Freedom. And you can find me in my office almost every day, Monday to Friday at 604-885-0562.
Awesome. And Adele, as she's sitting in her office there, is looking at a beautiful ocean view of the Pacific Ocean. Envy your view. I'm looking at a lake. You're looking at the ocean, and we share similar weather. We're just up the road from each other. So I say, "How's the weather down there on the ocean?" It's calm on the lake, rough on the ocean. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adele. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Michelle.